As you know, I'm Pedro Linares. I'm co-director with Xavier of the of Economics for Energy. I'm also, from very recent time, editor-in-chief of the Energy Journal, and I have the privilege of chairing this roundtable, in which what we want to do is to discuss with the challenges and the opportunities, especially for many young researchers here, to publish their very good quality research. I have to say that in the session that I chaired this morning, most of the papers would make it to the Energy Journal, so I do encourage you to consider that, as well as all the other journals here represented. Okay, so we have a really amazing panel here. We have Simon Dietz, who is co-editor of the Journal of the Association of Energy and Environmental and Resource Economists. Andreas, co-editor of Resource and Energy Economics. María, co-editor of Environmental and Resource Economics. Juan Pablo, associate editor of JEEM and of the Rand Journal of Economics. And Neumann, senior editor of Energy Policy. So I think we have all the best journals in the field represented here. And as I said, what we want to do is to discuss a bit what are the challenges and opportunities for publishing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them 3 questions, the same 3 questions, and I'm going to let them try to answer them as best as they can in 5-6 minutes, and then we'll open up the debates and open up the floor for your questions, right? So the 3 questions that I think are most relevant for many of you here is, first, what can we do to maximize the success in publishing? What would be your advice to especially young researchers and also not so young researchers to try to maximize success in this increasingly difficult world in which, as we know, reviews are getting more and more difficult, good quality reviews are getting more and more difficult to get, in which there is a lot of competition, in which we have open access journals which are running a different business model. So what should we do to maximize our success? Second is, what do you think are the major challenges that researchers are facing in terms of publishing? And finally, is there anything we can do from the journals? How can we help? How can we improve the way we are doing things in order to facilitate that good quality research gets published in the best journals? So these are my 3 questions. I hope they are not that difficult. And let us start from the far side. So
probably all of you know the backstory. Well, most of you know the backstory of JEERE. Possibly some of you don't. It emerged out of the association divorcing from Elsevier and creating a new journal published by University of Chicago Press. So it's quite analogous to what happened with the European Economic Association and the Journal of the European Economic Association. But just like EER hasn't died, JEEM most certainly hasn't died. In fact, JEEM is doing very well as far as I can see. So as a field, we're in this situation where, depending on who you ask, we either have 2 top field journals or one very close, in a very close second place. So yeah, that's the situation we've got as a field, arguably. I'll follow Rob's model of talking about the journal in a bid to answer the questions. So obviously we're a field journal with a remit covering the whole of environmental and resource economics. So unlike the Journal of Public Economics, environmental econ is not competing with other fields of economics. I was joking earlier with Lukas Brečka that I was trying to figure out whether we had any strategy in terms of areas of the field that we want to promote or methods that we want to promote, and I ended up concluding in a sense that we don't. The focus is just on quality and on serving the authors well in terms of providing fair and good quality reviewing and fast turnaround, right? So in case you're wondering, I haven't been party to an editorial meeting where there have been discussions like, we need to publish more papers on X, or we need to publish more papers with methods Y, right? I just haven't had that kind of discussion, right? So that kind of strategizing hasn't happened in my experience. We have 4 co-editors-in-chief and 15 co-editors, okay? And we receive far fewer submissions than the Journal of Public Economics. What that tends to mean is that individual co-editors, such as myself, are handling around 1 paper a month. So compared with some journals, that's a relatively small number, and it means that for each of those papers, we're trying to function like an additional referee. So we really try to read the paper and provide our own comments as well as the ones from the reviewers. Turnaround time, so 50% of papers are turned around in 2 months, and 2 months is the target, and we meet that about 50% of the time. Now, I tend to handle papers in my wheelhouse, as co-editors do. So for me, that is primarily IAMS, applied theory, and occasionally I get empirical papers where the co-editors-in-chief think I can be trusted on the econometrics. So I think my sort of comments are going to be a bit different, because in my area, external validity isn't, well, if it is a concern, it has a different flavor to it. So in my area, I tend to look at papers in terms of originality, significance, and rigor. And I think, especially with applied theory, one of the big issues that often comes up is that the papers that get rejected present themselves as essentially mechanical exercises in taking an existing theory model and relaxing a couple of assumptions, which makes it a bit more complicated to solve, and then go through the rigmarole of solving it. But once the authors have done that, it's not always easy to convince the editor that the outcome is original enough or significant enough, right? So I think that's one issue in the area of applied theory and numerical modeling potentially. Another issue is that a lot of papers are just sort of badly written in terms of motivation. It's clearly a difficult thing to do well. But it is definitely almost all the time I get comments from reviewers complaining about how difficult the paper is to read, how they didn't get what the reason for writing it was, and so that shows that this is something that the average author probably overlooks, basically. In terms of how. Last question, how can journals help? I mean, I haven't had many problems finding good reviewers. I think that fast turnaround is definitely an issue for journals in economics. I think we do quite well on that, and I think other journals are doing increasingly well and do well. I think that by having a large number of co-editors, we also try to deal with this potential expertise problem. Who is qualified to review this paper, and will they be able to find the right reviewers for it? So these are anyway some of the strategies that I think we have. I'm trying to sound like we have a strategy. These are some of the strategies that we have for making sure that authors get a good service. So. I'll leave it at there for now. So.
Is this on? Yes. Can I just ask one question? Are we being recorded?
I don't think so, right?
No.
Turn it off.
This is esta sesión no se retransmite, ¿verdad?
No.
Okay.
Not transmitted. Nobody online.
No, I just find that I did sort of it. Okay, thank you. I mean, welcome everybody to Atocha. Thanks for having me. So I'm with the with energy policy. At energy policy, I've been there for 2.5, 3 years. I can't remember. We have now 2 managing editors who do the first screening of the submissions, Both of them are trained economists. And then we have 4 senior editors and 4 editors that help in proceeding with the papers. Unlike the 2 speakers before me, by the end of April 2024, we have received 1,633 submissions. Right, so this has been an increase by 27% compared to the same period, to last year, and that highlights you one of the major issues that we have as a journal to identify basically what is relevant, what should we give to our reviewers, because we do not want to stress the reviewers, right? So it's just a lot of work. As a turnaround, or as a backside to the same story, is that we desk reject about 80% of the papers, given the quantities we have. And that desk rejection rate has increased by 18% since last year already as well. So if you do get a desk rejection, don't take it too personal, and you may actually call out to the managing editor and ask whether that is really justified. I think most of the times it is, but sometimes we do also make mistakes. So don't be afraid to get back. What am I supposed to talk about? To maximize your success in publishing, my advice would be energy policy. It's in the title. We are a policy journal. We are not that much interested is a wrong word, but mathematical modeling in a paper is not our main business, right? And including a policy recommendation in 3 sentences at the end of a paper does not meet the requirement to be policy relevant and be published at Energy Policy. I think that is the most important thing. The second most important thing is, as Simon just said, is Simon, as Simon just said, is that replication of existing models does not guarantee your publication in Energy Policy either, right? Just doing something that has been done, solar PV in Japan, and then doing it for Kuwait will not basically be a guarantee to get published in Energy Policy. The major challenges the researchers are facing, I think, from an author's perspective at Energy Policy, it's like, I like the comparison to a big airport where everybody is there to fly and everybody goes through the first same security, and then you go to your terminals. And sometimes we editors don't know what happens at the other terminal. So you as a reader at Energy Policy will see papers published where you think, well, I'm doing exactly the same and I got rejected. And that is mainly because it's maybe we don't talk enough to each other, and there is always some insecurity on what is publishable or not. Look at the aims and scope of the journal. Energy Policy is mainly related to energy use and or supply. We also consider climate policies, but we tend to send those papers to other journals represented on the stage here, right? Because this is not our core business. And that is actually also what I believe is that we as journal can be better at, as Energy Policy, not the other journals here, but I think we can be better in being stringent in the application of our evaluation criteria. Given the amount of people involved at Energy Policy, there are errors of type 1 and type 2.
All right. I'm an associate editor of both a JEEM and Rand Journal of Economics, and my job is very different from a co-editor. You know, last week I was talking to an editor of an economic journal, and I had to handle like 180 papers per year, a lot. I handle very few papers for both journals, very few. So I don't think I'm a representative of this group. For Rand, typically they ask me to whether this paper should be desk rejected or sent to reviewers, and then advise on reviewers. And I don't know, I get 6, 7, 8 papers per year, no more than that, in the field, of course, energy, environment, and I think there I have rejected, I mean, I recommended desk rejection in most papers that I received, not all, but many. And the reason is because the papers were written with a very narrow questions. Instead of presenting this as an application, it could be an energy or environmental paper, but has more to contribute to a wider, IO audience. If you don't have that in your paper, then there's a big chance they're not going to take it. So you need to, even if it's an energy or environmental application, you may contribute to the IO, literature, and you need to present your paper that way. I think that would be the main message. If not, I mean, you may not want to do that, or maybe it's not possible to do that, then you go to the field journal right away, JEEM or, energy policy, resource and energy economics, any of the other. But if you're going to RAND, you need to somehow connect your results to something wider that can interest any IO person. And I'm sure there are connections, there's for sure there are connections, but you need to make more effort on that. For JEEM, I've been pretty much very positive with the papers that I have received, and there I think it's different, because even if you get a paper with a narrow question, if it's well executed, boom, I think it should go through. It's just a question of execution more than a question of whether this is aiming at a wider audience, I think. So these are two very different journals, and in terms of how you present your paper, your results, and your contribution. So going back to your questions, Pedro, I think I talk a little bit about the challenges for researchers and all that. About the journals, I have a question for you, actually. Because, for example, I also have been an invited editor for the International Journal of Industrial Organizations a few times. There, special issues are very important. They have more citations than regular issues. So I don't know if for the field journals, I'm not talking about JPAB because I think it's a different story, but for the field journals, whether special issues are a good idea in which you can increase, the citations, and I don't know what is experience with this. I mean, I know in this journal, in the IJIO, I think they have a good experience and they want to keep, producing these special issues, because you get very good people that otherwise they wouldn't be publishing there. I don't know, Robert Porter, for example, was part of in the last, Carl Shapiro, for example, in the last issue. Big names. You only get those names in those, special issues, and they get a lot of citations, and also they can attract other scholars. So the question is whether journals should pay more attention to that, and a conference like this. I know Xavier, has done this in the past and have worked very successfully, I think. I don't know what the journal think about that. So that's a question that I have for editors of these journals, whether this was a good idea or not, or they want to continue doing this. So that's the question that I have for you guys.
You seem a bit Gallego. You know that Gallegos are always asking, are always replying with more questions.
Well, we're in Galicia, right? That's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Maybe we can finish the round, and then I'll give you my take on special issues, because this is something we are currently discussing at the association, at the Energy Journal.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hi everyone. I'm here as a co-author of EERE, Environmental and Resource Economics. This is the journal of the European Association of Environmental and Resource Economics, as most of you know. Currently, they have 3 chief editors, Ian Bateman, Anna Spinola, and Alistair Munro. Usually, the level of submissions, although it varies per year, is about 1,200, 1,400 nearly. And the acceptance rate is about 8%. So, leaving aside the discussions within the journal and how we should position ourselves and how we should compete and differentiate ourselves from American journals, in particular, and new American journals, I wanted to bring up to the table a few things. One of the questions is how to maximize the success of publication. Well, 8% is not too much. I have to say that EERE counts with 20 co-editors, about 2018-20. and each of us handles about 20 papers per year. Our role is a mix of editorial role and reviewer role, about 20 per year. However, I also collaborate with ecological economics, and I want to bring that up just because at times it's used as a substitution, and I want, not a substitution, but given the high rejection rate of some journals, well, there are some other similar journals in the field, and at times we resubmit to very near journals, such as ecological economics. For example, in ecological economics, we get between 1,600 and 1,800 submissions per year. And last year, as an editor, I handled 100 manuscripts, 100. It was so much work. Let me tell you how I feel about the manuscripts we get and how this should be improved. I am talking about two journals of the field, and one idea I have for you guys is don't ever do automatic resubmission when your paper has been first rejected. For me, as an editor, when I get good reviewers who do a very professional work, and you get a rejection, the paper is rejected, and you get very important things there to do, and for whatever reason, I see that this paper again comes back to me without you doing anything on it, I feel really disappointed. And it's very interesting and very important not to get confused the objective with the means of the objective, okay? In most occasions, you should look at what the reviewers have said about your paper, go back and do it, if this is reasonable. Otherwise, it seems like you are also automatizing the way in which submissions are being done, right? So I feel discouraged when I see that I may have gotten a good pair of reviews for you. You have gotten these comments, constructive and professional, and then I get the very same paper 3-4 weeks later in ecological economics, for example, and nothing has changed. This is don't do that type of thing, if I may add something to what you guys have said before. So this is one idea, right? Rejections are very high nowadays. So sooner or later, each of us will get rejections. We are getting rejections. Is part of the thing. So we have to also normalize the fact that rejections are very, very common. And we have to handle them in a professional way. And we have to pay attention to whatever is said in the review process and take it to improve your paper. Otherwise, there's no way, there's no sense for you to keep resubmitting and sending back and forth and so on. So that's one suggestion, if I may say. Another aspect that I am observing is that our field of work is spreading, right? It's expanding and it's increasing and becoming more multidisciplinary. And with that, it comes the fact that at times you even don't know what you are reading. Okay, is this paper economics? Is this paper sociology? Is this paper, what is the main area of this paper, right? Because multidisciplinarity is super interesting, but it's challenging, to be honest. It's challenging. It's challenging for the journal, it's challenging for getting good reviews and so on and so forth. So, in that case, what is most important to do is to come back to basics and describe what is the crucial question you are addressing, because at times it doesn't seem very clear. And given that data sets are increasing and becoming different or even more difficult to handle, another aspect that for me is very important is when the authors take time on making sure that the results are replicable and the data is somewhat accessible, right? I don't like black boxes, I don't, and the profession don't like them in general. So we should avoid that. This is little tips that we can do in order to improve our lack. But there is also an important thing, and the important thing is that we should talk very frank and clearly about rejections. Rejections happen very, very, very frequently. So we have to learn how to deal with them. Not as a loss, but it's part of the process, right? And what can we do then, you were saying, so I will suggest these two things. The challenges, I think a big challenge is that submissions are increasing, journals have much more pressure than ever, and one aspect that we should really work on, in addition of maybe thinking on special issues and other outlets and so on and so forth, is about speeding up the review process as much as we can. I think this is something crucial, given that the probability of getting a rejection is so high. We should aim collectively as improving our turnarounds and review processes. I think this is super important because otherwise you lose a lot of time. So that's one thing that maybe journals can work on, increasing co-editors, reducing number of submissions, or that. Another challenge probably is differentiation, right? And it happens to me also when I go abroad and participate in selection processes and the different indicators that are being used as quality indicators of different journals. At times it happens that they are, I think we all here have a very clear understanding but of what is a quality journal and what is a quality paper, but to publish or how is it, to pay, or if you don't publish, what's the name? In English is, you perish or publish, right? Yeah, I don't think it's a very interesting approach because you should think on publishing in relatively good journals and with relatively good quality. Otherwise, the signal you are sending is not very optimistic either. And we should be careful with that also. And this is more or less what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I'm here as a co-editor of Resource and Energy Economics. This journal is edited by Robert Johnston and Stefan Ambeck, who was actually here last time in our Atlantic workshop. The system is that there are about 20 co-editors in REE that are supporting. Actually, they more or less handle independently more or less papers in the process and also make most of the decisions in the course of the submissions and the acceptance. So the journal is focusing on environmental and natural resource economics. It has about 50% desk rejection and about 10% plus of article acceptance. So the scope is relatively broad, I would say. So if you look at the journal citation reports, you can see it's actually relatively close to JEEM and environmental resource economics in terms of topics that are covered. So there is a broad range of topics. If you look at most cited articles, that's economic analysis of instruments or instrument choice, energy consumption is a big topic, climate policy, as well non-market valuation has a foot in resource and energy economics for a long time. So these are the things where clearly you could submit your paper to REE. We also run special issues. You ask a question there. I have conflict of interest because we had a Atosha special issue. The idea is that in the special issues we usually integrate one of the co-editors in running the special issues, such that we can keep quality high and do not differentiate the whole process of getting up with a special issue from regular submissions. So therefore I cannot comment on this one because I was involved as an editor, but I think it went very well, all papers nowadays published. But there also we try to define new topics. For example, we have recently a workshop on non-market valuation where we'll have a special issue. We have a new special issue also coming out of this debate about climate neutrality, coming out of a larger workshop in Paris and so forth. In our case, if you think about what should you do, it's a bit about what we just heard about the differentiation, because very often we get papers that I would say are very technical papers. So they are not really grounded, I would say, in economics as a discipline. So that's a side catch in a way a bit, no? So they very often, I would call them more an engineering focus or mechanics, no? They are looking at, and then they look at relationships between two variables or something like that, no? And they don't really care a lot about, you know, the theory or the mechanisms giving rise to these relationships in a deeper sense, and as well very often fail a bit to look at the, let's say, the relevance of the findings. So these are, I think, the two main important shortcomings. So for the submissions, it's very often something that is, let's say, a localized type of thing, no? And it's really unclear what you learn from that, and it's also unclear what, as an economist, you learn from that, no? And I think that is something that that is really important also to stress, that you always should come, I think, from more, you know, some economic theoretical considerations, no? Whether you have a big theory model behind or not, but I mean, at least, I mean, thinking about what does it make an economic, what does this work make an economic paper, and this, I think, is really important, and then, as I said, this is sometimes missing. Also, this relevance and impact is sometimes not clear in many of the papers that we are seeing. We are not handling that many articles, as we've just heard. It's something probably in between, probably more like 5-ish or something like that, or 5 to 10 or something like that, that end at our desk. But as I said, that is really the challenge. I think that's also a more general challenge, I think, for our field, and if I reflect on that, I would probably, I mean, Xavi, you were also in the IPCC, no? I think one of the things that we observe is that very often, I mean, also in the IPCC, we had big debates, no, about the impact of carbon pricing, okay? That's a big issue, no? But very often economists are not heard in these things, no? Because, let's say, policy papers that tackle these type of things, they are often published in, you know, more general scientific journals in, I don't know, Science, Nature, Energy, Nature, Climate Change, or whatever, probably without the rigor. So they would probably not have been published even in Resource and Energy Economics, no? But they are published there, and then of course it goes to the big arena, and people are referring to this one, no? And then you see people that might never have made a full economic impact analysis on some of these instruments, no? But they publish these papers, and then they come up with very broad claims. So that, I think that's a challenge, and I think we should think a bit about, no, also as journals, how we can deal with it, no. And I have no answer to that, obviously, but I see that we are losing a bit track in these public domains, no, where we see that many of the economic insights, which we have heard today, no, also in the keynotes, very robust insights, no, I think that we have achieved, actually are not, you know, taken up as they should, no, in the public domain, and the journals are sometimes also not playing the role they should play as the leading journals in the profession that is focusing on this type of rigor analysis.
So, I think we have plenty of ideas, right? But if I may summarize, then I think many of you mentioned the same things, right? So if I had to write a short piece of advice, basically, of course, look at the scope of the journal, which is one big problem. I would say many of the test rejects I do now at the Energy Journal is because they're basically out of scope. So, but then I think there are 3 very important things. One is show your contribution. Many people don't even care in explaining what is their contribution. And of course, the editors will just. Second thing is keep it simple, right? And third is motivate it well. I think if you do these three things, your chances are going to be quite significant. And then, of course, I think for us, again, most of you mentioned that the journals have to do wood quality reviews, which is more and more of a challenge, I would say. Fast turnaround, and then find the relevance, as you said. I think this is the major summary. Before I open the floor for questions, about the special issue thing, I think that is a quite interesting debate. My feeling is that, I mean, I have very little experience in that, but my feeling is that there are very good special issues when they are connected, for example, with a very good workshop or conference, like, for example, I don't know, the ASA meetings or this one. And then there are also very good special issues by invitation. But all the other special issues, I mean, you know what to expect. So sometimes I worry about, particularly given that many special issues get a fee, I worry about the perverse incentives there, because some journals may be interested in running special issues just for the money, and of course the quality goes down very quickly. So I think that is something that has to be dealt with very. One thing that we are considering also at the Energy Journal is to have invited reviews, for example. If you want to maximize citations, then I think having a very good author writing a very good review of a topic, of a relevant topic, I think that's a great idea. But again, that has to be done by invitation. You cannot just leave it to the market, as to say, and expect to have a good review paper. But yeah, any reactions to?
I do have a reaction. This mic is on, is it? Yeah. So at Energy Policy, there's a form on the website where we invite you to apply to sort of basically you submit a special issue idea. And this application then goes to all editors and we discuss this application, right? So I'm not very familiar with, let's say, people from a particular region of the world. And I don't know what's going on there, but some other editor might be, right? So we discuss this, and then there's a consensus on whether we should go on with it. I know that at the Energy Journal, there was some time ago some financial interest, or basically a publishing in there, the EMF scenario things. Anyway, coming back to the Energy Policy, we are in the process of changing this open invitation for special issues, because there's a lot of non-viable submissions, put it like that. And one of our managing editors, that's why we have two, will now start actively recruiting special issues. Like if Atocha would come to me and ask, would you do a special issue with Energy Policy? I would easily say, I do not have concerns regarding quality. I would step up for it and I would do it, right? So, and I would handle this, but this is an exception because there's a lot of non-Atocha submissions out there. So, but we still have the opportunity at the Energy Policy to do energy special issues by you approaching us. So if you are planning to do something like that, it's still worth talking about it. But we are soliciting special issues, inviting special issues, but this is a learning process as well. What is the incentive for a special issue editor to do this?
Okay, so 15 minutes for questions. So, Sebastian.
To comment, the first one is, I mean, we don't have a system to become a good referee. And I remember my first experience when my advisor asked me to be a referee for a very good journal. I just, asked a Nobel laureate to rerun a field experiment. So I made a big mistake because I didn't know what was you don't do this, huh? Of course. But I learned, my advisor gave me, but we have really few feedback, and this is an open Canva. I mean, we receive, there's no structure in how, now I'm an associate editor, I see also a lot of heterogeneity, so is there any talks of maybe we should put a bit of structure of what should be a good referee report, or maybe provide feedback? And that link to that point, what about AI? I mean, can we discuss on the generation of papers? Now, I saw in the last year papers from some part of the world that are written with perfect English, and like, okay, I know what's going on. And also on the referee process, I mean, can we have some sort of ethical solution where maybe we can have some help from generative AI? So that's my 2 points.
Maybe we can take several questions and then try to.
Hello. I would like to go also to the dark side of the publishing process. As a researcher, I have been rejected, had many rejections, of course, but I had very few good reviews. And I think this is something that really worries me, and it really pisses me off, of course, because it's really frustrating, and I'm seeing that this is happening a lot with younger students. I think, of course, might be related because due to the amount of work that some reviewers have. But my question will be, how do you, what can we do in order to improve these reviewing processes? Because I tend to see, or I get to see many reviews that are very, very general, that they don't say anything, and that you don't really know how to address that for another journal, or to send it again to another journal, María. And then the conflict of interest. This is something I've been collecting kind of replies from reviewers for the last 15 years, and it's amazing the kind of bad practices that one could define, I think.
Questions from this side?
One more from this side, if you allow. So I wanted to suggest to the others, if you have some spare times to explain to the referees what your decision was and why you took the decision, that would be highly welcome. Many journals do it, many editors do it, but some don't. So when I do a correct referee review, I would be welcome. Well, I would be curious to know what happened with that paper and what was just one line. I follow your argument, or I think I disagree, or something like that. So that would be highly valuable. And for the rest, I mean, again, if the editor has some spare time to see what the reports are about, and if referees complain that the paper is already too long, but they ask for additional explanations which take at least 10 or 50 pages more, how can this be consistent? Some guidance would be helpful for the authors. So that's just from the other side. I mean, obvious, but what should you do as an author when you revise a paper and you have two conflicting suggestions? How could you solve this? When the editor gives some guidance without saying that necessarily this will be then a positive outcome, that would be helpful.
Thank you. As a suggestion for the journals, sometimes we review papers, we provide feedback, and I think it would be very useful to get also feedback from your side. If the revision is, I don't mean to say this is about revision, but if the revision is good or is well done, I think sometimes it could be also appreciated to get some feedback from your side. So because you do the best you think you should do, but perhaps this is not your expectation. So I think some feedback from your side sometimes could be useful. Thank you.
Hello, Alex Zaklan, University of Rostock. Well, we've heard the point about sort of very general reviews, bad reviews, not very easy to deal with. But what about the opposite of reviewers who get so involved with the paper that you as an author actually have the sense that they're trying to push you in a certain way? So I was wondering, do the editors have a recommendation to an author of how to deal with this sort of situation?
Just starting up a bit on the special issues of Atosha, something we didn't say this morning, in most editions we had either a book or a special issue, only one. And they were outside this morning. They were not supposed to be taken. It was, but most have disappeared. So, and the problem is that we only have one of these journal issues. So please bring them back and allow people to see them. But actually, the experience was quite good. I think they fulfilled two of the things that Pedro said worked well by invitation, by a group of good people, a good workshop. So our experience, I would say, Massimo, Andreas, Pedro, even in some occasion we were editors, and I think the experience was also very good.
Okay, reactions to this? Anybody? I have a couple of things. So I have to say that when the association issued the call for editor-in-chief, I deleted the email. My first reaction was to delete the email. And then it got back to me. Anyway, long story. But the thing is, one of the reasons why I applied for this job was my disappointment with many of the review processes that I've been experiencing in the last years. I think I'm so happy to learn that many of you are happy with your reviewers, because, I mean, getting a good review, as you say, is, I mean, I can tell you the last example. One of the papers we sent with one of my PhD students, we received an AI-generated review that was replicated 3 times without the editor. What I mean is that we received the review, we clearly understood it was AI-generated, we replied to it in the best way, we received exactly the same review, we received exactly the same review 3 times. That's a problem of the editor. I mean, so I think we need to understand that editors play a very, very important role. We need to filter. We need to filter correctly. We need to give feedback to the reviewers. We need to tell the reviewers whether their review is a good quality one or not. And my feeling is that in many journals, not in any of this, but in many journals, the editors are not doing the job. So they're just relying on, okay, I get the review, I send it to it's a reject, and without even looking at it. So I think that's a big problem that we are facing. And unless editors put more time into reviewing the reviews, into giving a quality check, I think we are facing a lot of problems. And again, my experience is that this is quite terrible. About the templates you mentioned, I have mixed feelings about the templates. I think the templates that you see, of course, we all review papers for many journals. Most templates are too constraining, and they don't allow to give a good review of the paper. So I'm personally not for templates. I'm personally for a nice referee report that is well written, that is helpful, that is constructive, and I'm also in favor of the necessary amount of test rejects. So we need to be clearer from the beginning. We shouldn't let papers drag along the review process as much as possible. That's my short experience, and one that is I'm still learning. But you had that.
No, but we are just at the beginning of the AI stuff now. This is 1 year in. Now, in 2 years, you will not be, even as an editor, you will not be able to detect an AI-generated review. So I mean,
well, if you're not able to review it, it's because it's very good, and I don't expect that. I mean, for example, the review we got was saying your model is very similar to these other models, and the chatbot was basically mentioning models that had nothing to do with our model. So I think AI is not yet there to provide a good personalized review of the paper. So now I think it's still easy to detect, but again, the editors need to do our job well. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to continue with one comment I hear, which is absolutely true, and I totally identify with it. A lot of rejections, but not good reviews, and that's the key. And you guys were talking about ethical solutions to that, conflicts of interest, and so on. And I think these are pending issues. And if we were to receive a small, if we were to be a small community, a scientific community, I think that would be much easier to identify the problems and to deal with. But at times, this is very complex. And there is a significant proportion of human error in the process, I believe, from all sides, right? So that's why I am saying the review process is not perfect. We can try to make it better, but it's not perfect. And my word is of encouragement. If you get rejected, don't get discouraged. There's a super high probability of getting rejected. So I'm going to give you advice that my former PhD advisor gave to me. You have to get thick skin on this, right? And it's part of the process, right? It is. And the review process is not perfect, and we should be aware of that. And although in the journals in which we are, probably most of us have assistance with IA generating techniques that help us to identify different non-ethical situations, right? Still, there is much work that has to be put in, and particularly, it seems to me that our papers are becoming more complex to review, are becoming more interdisciplinary and therefore harder to understand. And I mean, they require lots of time. And that's why I'm just trying to say the review process requires maybe a rethink also in the general terms. And don't give up is what I want to say in a positive way.
So my response to this is, so I'm reviewing, I get 200 papers a year that I'm handling, right? I took on the job because I thought it would be interesting for me to learn, to be on the frontier and actually see what is going on. And it still holds up for that. Being an editor is challenging, but I take it serious as long, well, you know, I'm not gonna continue if I'm not enjoying it anymore, but if I do something, I do it properly. One of the things is that I read every single review report that comes in to me, and I have been sending review reports back saying, please mind your language and be nice, because it's not, you know, treat each other with respect. And I have seen cases where even though we have a thick skin, is like Alex mentioned, some advice on what do you do if a reviewer is trying to shape your paper into a direction that is not what you want to do. And I think it's fair then also as author to stand your position and in your response to the reviewer, which will be read by the editor, make your case, right? And there's some reviewers that you will never convince of your idea or whatever, but it might get the editor to send it out to a different reviewer to give it another chance. So, and I think we see that. And one ground rule I have for myself as editor is I do not send out desk rejections on a Friday or a Monday.
That's really kind. Okay, we're just in time. So any final thoughts?
Put a bit of pressure on myself.
Just tap on it.
Where, top?
Yeah, there you go. It works.
Okay. Yeah. So insofar as we think that it's not obvious to me that the average quality of editing work and reviewing is suboptimally low, but it could be. If we think that the quality of editing and reviewing is suboptimally low, then I would say the problem is that as an activity, it's under-resourced, and there's a lack of recognition. The reasons for bad editorial jobs and bad reviews are that people don't have the time or willingness to produce good ones. Yeah. So I think that it's difficult. I can't think of a system which is a completely different system, which is better to the peer review system that we have. But the peer review system that we have does have problems. And some of them are basically just structural and are not solvable by just trying to do a marginally better job as an editor. I mean, if you're editing hundreds of papers a year, you are going to need to resort to heuristics, like if I've got 2 rejects, then it's a reject. You just can't, right? And as reviewers, if you're doing 1 a month, 1 every 2 weeks, there's only so much time you can spend. So we're just, if we think the quality is suboptimally low, then it's because we're systematically under-resourcing this activity and not providing enough recognition for good work.